A666. Some call it the Devil's Highway, and some call it the Road to Hell. But I can't believe the devil came from Bolton, gorged on black peas astride a small stone elephant, and I don't believe he was ever a fan of Chris Rea. The A666 is the road that takes you from Hobson's Choice, Salford, into the heart of God's country, Lancashire. My pal and I hit this particular road like Terry and June in a battered old Hillman Lynx masquerading as an Eddie Stobart truck, to give thanks and praise the Lord to those ladies known as the Pendle Witches, those uneducated, mostly very poor, sometimes a little bit daft, but then aren't we all, women who were by and large unjustly hung by cretinous agenda-filled judges and their potty Reformation-obsessed word editors on the order of their bully kings. Proof, if ever needed, that man can be a black dog. The hills around Pendle are Blakean in its green and pleasant, but demoralised by its dark and satanic. This is the North, the fantastical North, the home of proud, hard-grafting bastards, where even the children have Vimto moustaches, and like all beautiful flowers, we need our rain. Through poky limestone villages, we drove past tea rooms and snotty delis and clothes shops for well-to-do rugrats, where bearded, grumpy, middle-aged Janes with paper rounds cursed our passing in the street, and a slightly backward lad would shout, "I'm a horsefly." I have gone out, a possessed witch, haunting the black air, braver at night, dreaming evil. I have done my hitch over the plain houses, light by light, lonely thing, 12-fingered out of mine. A woman like that is not a woman quite. I have been her kind. I have found the warm caves in the woods, filled them with skillets, carving, shells, closets, silks, innumerable goods, fixed the suppers for the worms and the elves, whining, rearranging the disaligned. A woman like that is misunderstood. I have been her kind. I have ridden in your cart, driver, waved my nude arms at villages going by, learning the last bright routes. Survivor, where your flames still bite my thigh and my ribs crack where your wheels wind. A woman like that is not ashamed to die. I have been her kind. We pulled into a heritage centre with Doctor Who as narrator, but with little to wrap our arms around, we waltzed around some visitor shop. Tourism is a funny old foxtrot in Pendle Town. How do we market the loss and hanging of women like us, but with coasters, tea towels, and Demdike Hoovers? lady, 30 years in the witch business, with a penchant for BBC dramas and word puzzles. She'd seen all sorts pass her door. The white witch curious, the academic, the spotty weird kid, the light-fingered coach party, and them Euro-Satan-loving dicks who give our nice witches a bad name. She wiggled her nose and pointed us to a church cemetery, a light skip down a lane. Your Honour, I am guilty, yes, of petty theft and of using words that may be stress. But what is at fault here is the failure of religious, scientific, historic and forensic integrity. How can one defend oneself against rhetorical sleights of hand when the law, if it's to be infallible, must be manifestly evident? It is not manifestly evident that St. Peter appeared to the Pope, or that man can walk on water, but it is taken unquestionably as infallible. It is not manifestly evident that pigs can fly, that men can turn into dogs, or that law-abiding citizens always mean what they say. It is not manifestly evident that 4 sticks placed around a stone and sprinkled with water can bring eternal love. It is although manifestly evident that James Potts, court clerk at the Lancashire witch trials of 1612, omitted details of procedure, twisted and distorted comments, and used formulated legal documents instead of words actually spoken in his factional book, The Wonderful Discovery. He wanted liberty to write what he could, but his self-editor let him down. His persuasive intent when introducing our characters in court as wicked and miserable wretches and long-time witches had us already guilty in the eyes of the wolves. Unfortunately for people like us, we have never known a happy ending. A tall, grinning, gormless, ashen-faced gravedigger approached us in the cemetery and verily directed us with a black-and-toothed smile to the witch's grave, where the word nutter and a skull and crossbones were eroded but engraved. We took photos with apples, modern magic on a monthly tariff, and were underlined and beside each other with a dizzying hurrah, for here supposed lay the bones of Alice Nutter, the educated, the wealthiest, the luckiest of them all, the Pendle Witch with a grave. Caught our breath by bench at Tombstone, and a small muscular red-eyed dog appeared to our side, joked to my traveller companion that this was our familiar. Back in Salford we parked up by the law courts to fetch a pastry and a jar of coffee, accidentally reversing the car into what we found out to be the Jaguar of a dead-eyed agenda-ridden Lancaster-based judge. Too late, we know, but a small justice of sorts. Vendetta on women who are better. Said a man who praised the Lord. If you don't believe in Jesus, don't think there'll be a Christmas. to your sheep. One last spell I offer up
contains greens and worms and carrots. 16th century Holland and Barrett, dear.
snap my neck and rid goodbye. Every eye that sees is guilty of a subtle kind of cruelty. Another day is gone, another witch is dead. Another day is gone, another witch is dead. Another day is gone, another witch is dead. Another day is gone, another witch is Curse the genitals of James Potts. They were shriveled then, they'll certainly be shriveled now. Curse the ancient law books you still use today, and boots the chemist for stealing all my potions. Bark of tree and 12 crushed red ants. It's the London look. Curse the footballer's wage, not the nurse who's underpaid. Curse Rabid Cameron and the cuts to his vacation. There's probably another useless member appointed just like you right now. Curse the chainsaw of the Sunday morning gardener and the taupery arc of shame. Curse the smiling bus driver for being an abnormality to his profession. Curse the birds and the bees, not another selfish fuck. Curse the freedom of speech of those bumbling blonde mares and their bankers' bikes. The local shout, Ken for life. Curse street coffees in Salford. A table that sees rain and darkness 360 days a year does not make it a sophisticate. You're a twat. Curse the EDL, evils, dregs and losers. And that bulldog-jowled, glass-eyed Terry Duckworth lookalike, Dick Griffin. Curse the 20th century Lancashire Yorkshire barn cake versus bread cake debacle. It's a barn cake. Curse the his and hers, Crocs and flip-flops UK summer look. I see a pair of feet in disagreement with its owner. Curse the Jeremy Kyle, Matthew Wright audience, randy sods, busybodies and gossips that do nought taking the moral high ground. As Luke the Drifter once said, be careful of the stones that you throw. Curse the disappearance of Top of the Pops, aspirations crushed. Dad will never see my gormless sex face as I mime playing guitar to my #1 smash. Bronchitis, my baby, my guy. Curse the endless persecution of our kind. There's nothing more wicked than a watching but turn blind eye. Curse the city councils for plowing money into the city centres and the city lunches and the building of water features that look like urinals for the benefit of tourists, whilst the inner city folk who voted for you watch their neighbourhoods crumble, and we just can't walk the streets at night. Smoke screens, I curse you.